An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but a glass of OJ keeps the adversary at bay. Here's Odd Job.
Hey, it's time for a glass of OJ straight from Vegas. So, well, in Vegas, there's been a lot of interesting things going on. Saw some interesting tweets. One, which was fairly abhorrent, was apparently the clothespin game, where apparently this is a thing that people like to do, which is to stick clothespins on people's person, like their clothes, their backpack, or whatever, as a way to basically say, I could have touched you. Like, I don't understand the game. It's funny, I guess, if it's an in-group and you want to put a clothespin on someone, but random strangers, no, you probably don't want to do that. So consent is important at conferences, and against reputable conferences, it's against the code of conduct to touch or act like you can touch somebody, harass people, and this would count for that. And in good codes of conduct, you can get actually barred from that conference for forever. Up to forever. So don't do that. So there's a PSA from Vegas. Don't stick clothespins on people. Keep your hands to yourself. Also, this is a pandemic, so why? Why are we even doing that? Okay. PSA is over. Let's talk about postmortems. Incidents, emergency action postmortems. So, applies a lot for security operations centers and incident response teams when they have identified and escalated an incident to a SEV1, where you probably have a crisis management team that includes top executives, communication teams, should include lawyers, HR, legal, PR, everybody, right? And so you want to, so the process for like an incident response plan, for instance, will draw out how one determines that a P1 exists or a SEV1 exists, and what are then the actions that one takes to go about resolving that, or what are the actions and people that you talk to begin, triaging, going through this incident and responding, remediating, fixing, bringing, if there's been business interruption or service interruption, bringing those things back up confidently that you've got your backups back up and everything, all the shebang. But you've restored, you've remediated, you've restored, you're back up, everything's running, crisis management team's done talking, everything's back to normal, the SEV1's closed, or the P1's closed, whichever you like. Are you done yet? And I don't think so. I think what should be part of your incident response plan, or if you're a vulnerability management person and you've raised an escalation for an emergency patching situation or emergency remediation, and that's a P1 situation where you actually have, again, global teams or, people around your organization all on a bridge call to discuss how you're going to take care of this hour today, not 7 days from now, or 30 days from now. It's going to get taken care of today. So what do you do after those? So kind of like I've talked in the past, you want to give ownership and accountability to all those system and business owners, and also IT for their processes they run. And the way you do that is by involving them in the process at every step of the way. For instance, for remediation, maybe your forensic team or your incident response team can't log into the servers to actually make the changes that need to be made to resolve the issue or to kick the bad guy out, or bad people out. Women can be bad too. And so can non-binary folks. All those himbos, bimbos, and thembos. So, you need other people, and you rely on other people to kick them out. Sometimes you may find you actually have a shell in anyway through your tools, and you can do it. Cool. But in order to make sure everybody can maintain accountability and responsibility for their systems, it's important to have a postmortem. What, pray tell, does a postmortem look like and sound like? A postmortem is lessons learned. Lessons learned, a timeline of what happened is super important. And this kind of is important throughout the entire lifespan of an incident. Maintain paper trails, maintain chat logs, maintain emails that you've been sending out. And on the side, start kind of making notes on what you knew, when you knew, What rant? What actually justified raising the Sev 1 to begin with? What were the chain of events that caused this Sev 1? Did you delay causing a Sev 1 because maybe certain situations hadn't happened yet? And, if you knew what you knew when you called the Sev 1, you would have called it earlier. Everything looks good 2020, right? Everything looks much clearer once you know all the facts after the fact. So, giving that kind of process information into the lessons learned. And so what you do is you establish this timeline. You get a lot of the people that you worked with, especially in the people who carried out actions for the Sev 1. You might even bring in folks from the crisis management team if it was a big enough crisis, like, let's say, Colonial Pipeline. I'm sure there was some lessons learned that the CEO was in on, right? Should be. I hope your CEO was in on listened to or saw a report from a lessons learned at some point. You should involve your leaders and stakeholders in those types of Sev 1s. If not, you need, your IT leadership and some of your business process leadership in those calls if they were involved in the incident. And you need to go over the timeline of what happens. Who did what? Who knew what? When what? Don't go through all the technical details. You don't have to keep it technical. Keep it very general. Keep it very process-oriented. Very high-level overview of what facts happened at what time. It should be able to fit onto one line on PowerPoint. Maybe part of another. But it should not be a paragraph in PowerPoint. You should be able to basically make this a headline for each bullet point, for each step. It's a headline. Okay, so you've done that. The next thing to do, and make sure people on the call also agree that, yes, that was the timeline of events. If not, they can fill in some gaps. Everyone goes, yes, I remember that too. Or, yes, I forgot to put that in. Put that in on the fly so that everyone has a record of that. Okay, so then you go on to lessons learned. So lessons learned are important. Start off by saying what went well. Take a drink. Start off by saying what went well. This is super important because as much as we like to point fingers at people and blame others, we need to give credit to people, and we need to take credit ourselves too. But we need to give credit to people. Let's say you had a history of staff or business process people being unwilling to do things like disable user accounts or change firewall rules or other things. Let's say you had a history of that. And let's say on this incident, everyone was actually really good at, responding to incident response teams and doing what needed to be done. Mark that out saying, hey, we've gotten way better at this, since the last one. Or, hey, we've never done this before. Maybe you've never done a postmortem. Maybe this is the first time you're doing your incident response plan. Hey, this went really well, and we didn't necessarily expect it to the first time. This is great. So talk about those good experiences that happened. Maybe it was note-taking that was really great. Maybe it was the bridge and the meeting software you used that was great. We need to make sure we keep that going. So just kind of keep in mind those things and give credit where credit is due. And again, allow people to say other things. Lead the meeting, but after you're done, let other people say, yes, this went well too. Let them say, I don't think that went so well. Let them say that. That's fine. That's completely fine to say, that didn't go as well as you think it did. Because that's, again, how you learn more lessons. Maybe on the incident response side, yeah, that was really easy and looked really great. But it put, undue burden on other people and didn't work so well for them. You're going to have to figure that out. So then the other thing that you want to do is you want to actually say what didn't go so well. So what issues do we need to improve on? And that's what you need to say. You need to call them opportunities for improvement because it's not about finger pointing. How can we improve in the future? What things didn't go so well this time that we could do better? Maybe it's communications. Have you templated your communications? Have those improved by PR or legal? Whatever. So you need to think about those types of things. And then gaps to improvement. Are there technical gaps that are stopping you from making those improvements that you just identified? Are there skills gaps, personnel gaps? What kinds of gaps exist in your environment or with your people that prevent you from being able to do that? After you've gone through your postmortem, then Your items for improvement, along with the gaps, now become an action item list. This is where it gets back to accountability. Start assigning each one of those improvement areas to somebody, including yourself. Make sure you include yourself in that list, and you make sure that you have something to do to help improve the situation. And get an indication of how many weeks it's going to take. How many weeks it's going to take to actually get that done. It's not necessarily a deadline, but how much work is it going to take to actually get that done? Kind of set a date for the next update for each of those items and work with those people on it. Keep on it. You want to make sure that those things are done, because the next time you have a P1 or a Sev 1, you don't want those same. You want to review your past post-mortems. Do we have the same areas of improvement? Do we still have the same gaps? Did we have the things that went well? Did some of those repeat and we're doing well? Or do you even have new things that went well this time? Maybe improvements turned into this went well. That's really good. But this glass of OJ is over. And I want to thank you for jumping in the hot tub with me for a glass of OJ. And I'll be back in the Midwest in my normal office soon. And we'll see you again. But wanted to enjoy a glass of OJ with you in this hot tub in Vegas. See you in the next one.